Hey,
Welcome.
what's up?
Nothing much. How you doing?
Good. Just sorry that WSL has a call like every day for a little while to make sure that we're not going completely insane.
That's nice of
And
them.
it went a little longer.
No, it's all good. Any news to reveal off that phone call? Any scintillating gossip?
No, not really. Seems like everything's going as planned so far. The only thing that would change, but hopefully not wouldn't mean anything bad. We just might have to. They got another charter flight for us to WA, and depending on the COVID situation, then we're either gonna all have to like stay in this soft bubble thing, and they'll like shuttle us to the beach, or if that's only if they close the border into WA. So it guarantees us to get to go and do the contest. But if there's no border closure, then we'll be able to just go and do the thing as normal. So that'd be kind of nice.
If there is no closure, is everybody in a hotel or do you all have your individual accommodations?
We're all gonna end up, I think, staying at like two different spots that they got, because if you want your own spot, then you have to pay for both spots, which is stupid.
Right. Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, just
So,
from the outside, kind of tracking everybody's Instagram, it looks like the WSL's taking care of everybody pretty well between the bikes and fresh fruit deliveries. And what's your experience been?
yeah. Oh no, it's been so nice. I mean, yeah, definitely being stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks isn't super ideal, especially if you're used to being active and outside. But at the same time, it's like not bad at all. The rooms are super nice. I think we scored like I think some of the boys that came through after Hawaii, like it was more of a lottery on which hotel you ended up at. And I think since we came in as a group and they worked hard with like the government and everything, they were at the two nicest hotels
Nice.
that you can be at, I think, for quarantine. And freaking rooms killer. The food's been pretty good. They've been, yeah, sending us little goodie packs, and you can wool carts, wool dash, whatever they call it, your
I'm
own
not familiar
groceries, and
with
got a
it.
little kitchen. So it's like Instacart or whatever,
Okay.
you can Uber eat. So it's like, yeah, and frick, I mean, pretty, like the in today's day and age, you can pretty much get anything you want delivered to your room. It's kind of wild.
Good. Um, well, I'll give you a proper introduction in post so we can kind of just roll straight into conversation.
Yeah.
But speaking of food, you and Parker both actually have come a very long way since the Fat Boy Surf Camp. So, and I've referenced that once or twice on the podcast, and I'm always afraid like people think that I'm making fun.
Oh
But
no.
Fat Boy Surf Camp was your guys' deal. Tell me, explain what it was if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that it still exists very truly. But yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I got pretty chunky for a while there, especially like before I grew in my teen years. But then even still, like, and then Parker kind of, it was funny. Like I always joke, Parker was skinny and I was fat, and then we like met in the middle. Now, but no, it was just like we both love food so much, and you know how it is when you surf afterwards, you're so freaking hungry. Like we would just grind so hard growing up. And I guess that's the luxury of being a young teenager when you're super active. Like you could surf and eat a lot of food. But yeah, we used to just mow breakfast burritos and freaking Mexican food, and I don't know, all kind of in and out. Like I remember going to the in and out a couple of times after serving. Parker would get like three hamburgers, animal style fries, and like a milkshake. And I don't know,
Amazing.
we just grind so hard. But yeah, and then I guess that it matured over the years. Now like I love to cook, and Parker likes to cook too, not as much as I do, but and we just appreciate good food. So I guess we're a little bit more refined in our Fat Boy Surf Camp palate, and try to, I think once you hit your mid 20s, you can't get away with eating quite how you did. So I still eat a lot. I just eat healthier.
Got it. And that was actually going
Yeah.
to be my question was what's behind that transformation? I mean, because you guys are both shredded. I mean, you've taken Mick Fanning's position on tour for kind of looking the fittest and sculpted.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think, yeah, I mean, I guess I started working out more as somewhere in my mid teens after I hurt my knee really bad. And I guess I was like, oh, okay, if you want to do something and do it for a long time, you got to take care of your body. I never really liked working out, but it became something I felt like was a necessity if I wanted to have a career that lasted longer than a few years in surfing. So yeah, just kind of, I guess, feeling that need to take care of your body. And then as far from a food standpoint, I don't know. I guess I just like, I still love to eat like burgers and burritos, and pasta is like my favorite food. But I started to realize how important the food that I put in my body was to how I felt. And I've always actually been super sensitive to food since I was a kid. I just didn't really know it. But like cheese would make me super stuffy, and like I couldn't really eat dairy, but I would anyways. And I feel like as I've gotten older and cut some of that stuff out, like now when I eat it, it's even worse.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've just become, I think, more sensitive to what I put in my body. And I don't know if that's an age thing or some weird thing that happens as you, I don't know, get like, I almost feel like when you figure out what your body wants, then when you go back to putting something shitty into it, it like doesn't like that even more. And same
Yeah.
like with drinking. I feel like the less I drink, if I do drink, I feel like way more hungover or anything. Whereas when I was younger, it was like, you drink and not even get hungover.
I've noticed that too. And I feel you're absolutely right. If you are doing it all the time, you lose sensitivity to it. And so I feel like if you're eating fast food all the time or whatever, then cheese doesn't bother you, dairy doesn't bother you, but you're
Yeah.
also just in a you're in a general malaise. You're not as
Yeah.
sharp, you're not as focused, you're not as, obviously fast. Um, so good. It's good for you to figure out, are you following any specific diet or anybody in terms of dieting?
No, not really. I was having all these sinus problems for a while, and I was trying to figure it out. And like dairy was always something I knew like made it worse, but I did all this food allergy testing. So that was kind of something that I found super interesting. It's like, okay, because I feel like diet's super um, it's so individual. Like, I don't really think that there's this blanket way that we should all eat, or, what is right for my body's not what's right for your body. So I felt like finding out anything that I was sensitive to or allergic to was a good place to start. And that's kind of what I mostly go off of. I'm not like strict like keto or strict vegan. I love to eat meat. I've always like a good steak, and for me, I've always actually felt like my body agrees pretty well with red meat. But I do try to like, I guess I try to focus more on like the sources of my food. Like when I'm home, especially, I like to shop at farmers market or my friend's farm cart, and I like to try to get good quality like grass-fed beef. um, I like signed up for Butcher Box for a while, and then I like to fish and catch my own fish or get fish from friends that have caught fish. So that's kind of, I guess, that sort of farm to table, live off of what's around and what's in season is what I try to go off of. And then, obviously, like days where I just eat hamburgers, or on my way back from the airport, get 2 In-N-Out burgers. So I'm not super strict
Good.
about it all the time. I
Good.
definitely treat myself.
Yeah, I think that's
Guilty pleasures.
it's a healthy relationship to have with food. You want to know what's crazy, bizarre? As we were talking about this, a notification popped up on my phone from Uber Eats.
Oh no. Oh
It's
gosh. They're
literally
listening.
listening to us right now.
Of course they are.
I never get a notification from them. So
That's crazy.
it's really
God, the
bizarre.
world we live in.
I know. When was the last time you spent 2 weeks out of the water?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I feel like it's been a while. And I'll go a week without surfing, like not super often, but like fairly often living in Santa Barbara, but like I'll still go paddle or, go jump in the water. But it just gets so flat sometimes, or if yeah, but God, 2 weeks, I don't know. I almost feel like there was some period in there during COVID where it was just like lake flat and I didn't surf
Yeah.
for a couple weeks at home. But the last time would have had to have been when I was injured. Oh, I sat out of the water for 10 days in Hawaii when I was there because I stabbed a hole in my foot with the nose of my board, had
Oh,
some stitches. That was painful. The waves were pumping too, but that was probably the closest to 2 weeks. I don't know. I can't even remember 2 weeks. Shit, it's been a
I know.
while.
It's a
Knock
long
on
stretch
wood.
for any surfer.
It
Who are
is.
you spending it with? Who are you spending quarantine with?
My girlfriend Sierra came with me, so it's the two of us in a room.
Um, what is her life? I mean, does she work? How is she able to have so much time off to be able to travel with you?
Yeah, she was working before COVID, and then when all that happened, it's kind of been a little bit in limbo and like picking up odds and ends jobs and kind of short-term stuff and just kind of working all sorts of different little things. But so and I mean, kind of the purpose actually was back last year, she was going to come to Australia with me, and we were all fired up. And so she didn't get a full-time job, and then COVID happened, and it was hard to find a full-time job. And then the year went, we're like, oh, well, she's like, I'm going to come to Australia and then come back and find something more full time. So yeah, it's the
Good.
skinny.
That's convenient. I always think
Yeah.
about like especially with marriage and even kids, like is it a help or a hindrance to have those commitments? If your goal is to win a world title, are those things helpful or a hindrance? And I'm not convinced either way. Like in one sense, if those people are at home waiting for you, you're constantly thinking about them and wanting to be with them. If they're on the road
Yeah.
with you, that's almost a distraction, but it could also be a comfort from home that allows you to feel, more comfortable on the road in foreign places. So,
Yeah. No, it's such a good point because I've had different experiences, and you obviously see a lot of different, I'm like, I watch guys with, like Ace with 3 kids on the tour, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't think there's any fucking way my brain, the way it works, I could like compartmentalize and figure out how to surf events with 3 kids on the
right.
road. And like I watch him do it, and and he does a great job of it. And I guess it just, for only there's only so long in your life that you can really sacrifice like some of those other things. At some point you want to like, you want to start a family or whatever. So and he's like in his mid-30s, so it's I guess that's about right. I feel like everyone's different though too. And like Philippe's killing it. He's got a
Yeah.
family. But yeah, for me, like I had a girlfriend when I was younger, and it definitely wasn't like when I went away, it was like a bummer. And she's like,
Hmm.
oh, you're gonna be gone for a month. And I was like, okay, this kind of doesn't make sense. So
Yeah.
I did it single for a long time and felt like that was beneficial to me. And then I think it depends a lot on who you're with too. And like now I feel like uh, I'm more like grounded than I was when I was like single on the tour. It's like a lot of fun, but definitely would find myself burning the candle at both ends, especially in between events on a leg and then getting sick and, kind of that balance. So I think there's pros and cons to both. And yeah, I'm stoked on where I'm at now and had fun
Good.
doing it a different way for a while.
Yeah, but it sounds that's why I asked what her backstory was too, is because if she felt like she was sacrificing a job at home or stressed about that, then it probably would add stress to your world. But it sounds like
Yeah.
you guys have managed that well. Um, let's get
Yeah.
let's get to the tour though a little bit. The tour started this year rather than ended at Pipe, and I'm just curious, how did that affect your preparation, A, for that event and also for the rest of the season?
Yeah. I mean, Pipe's one of my favorite contests every year. And so I was looking forward to being the first event, and I guess I got to Hawaii super early, so I had plenty of time to surf out there. And like I felt like I feel like I know that wave fairly well, especially if it's like backdoor and stuff. But yeah, I had a terrible contest, but I felt like I was actually pretty well prepared. You had so long to prepare, but I definitely would say like one thing that was a little weird was like going into that event as the first event, and like those kind of nerves that sometimes I find myself having like at the beginning of the season. And I think that was like a little bit exasperated because of I hadn't competed in so long. um that just that like kind of second nature that comes to you in a heat. And it's weird, like you do practice heats and stuff and whatever, but sometimes it's just a little hard to really replicate that well, whether it's visualizing or doing heat. So yeah, I was definitely pretty nervous, like especially in round one, just kind of like felt a little jittery and felt like I was overthinking like decisions in a heat that, as you surf more heats and you're further in, you kind of just get in that competitive rhythm. So I definitely felt like I didn't have that how I would have liked to at Pipe, which is one of my favorite events. And then, just normal contest stuff, like the waves were really, really tough, which was unfortunate because the waves were really good for like 2 or 3 days when we couldn't run with the whole COVID debacle. And then we were kind of pigeonholed to run on like some big onshore shitty pipe the first few heats of that one morning. So whatever, those are just the things you deal with as, a competitive surfer. It's like, you think you're going to surf pipe and then you're trying to get a one pulling into like a chandelier onshore tube. And, sometimes you find that one and sometimes you don't.
Yeah. Overall, how do you feel about the idea of having pipe at the beginning rather than the end? Because I mean, I was conflicted about it.
For,
It's so we're so used to just having like a big like a zenith event at the end of the year. But
yeah.
so I want that, but at the same time, it's kind of like cut out all the fluff. I love starting with a bang too. I think that yeah, I don't want as viewers, we don't want to see like a slow burn to the end. Let's just start
Yeah,
hot and heavy and let the cards fall where they may. So I feel both ways about it, you know?
totally. No, I mean, I think, yeah, starting with pipe's great. For me, like pipe's kind of the pinnacle event for the year. And for surfing, like I think as a spectator and being there for the Pipe Masters so many years in a row, like to sit on the beach and watch that as the last event and you're 50 100 yards away from the action and just the energy around that event, I think should be at the end of the year. Like that's kind of like the perfect exclamation mark for the year. And there's just, with all the world title stuff and requalifying, like it's just so exciting. So I think to lose that there is a bummer, but at least we still have it. And to start it off with a bang is great. But I think in a perfect world, I would have it be the last event still and like have that be the showdown. And unfortunately, I guess now we would, there will only be 5 guys there. So it's fun to get to watch everyone surf at pipe too. Maybe if
Totally.
that was like the last event before the cut to the finals event or something. But, I mean, in our sport, it's like we're so dependent on nature and swells and you don't get a pipe swell in August. So
Yeah.
it ends up being the first event.
Well, in previous seasons, athletes usually have their two poorest results from the season thrown away. Do you have any idea how the math is going to shake out this year?
I don't know. And I think that's all, it's still all up in the air, which is kind of bizarre, like since I've been on tour, it's like, okay, you know where you're starting, you know where you're finishing, you kind of have this roadmap of like the whole year. And you have a good sense of like, okay, this is how I'm going to prep for this. These are the boards I need, and this year is just a total shit show. It's like, we thought we were going to Sunset. Oh no, Sunset's canceled. Oh, Santa Cruz is canceled. Okay, now where are we going to surf an event? Okay, we're going to Newcastle, not Snapper, Bells, not Narrabeen. So it's like everything's so kind of just malleable and up in the air that it's definitely been a really different year to prepare for. And I think, that being said, it's like kind of just the state of the whole world. So you can't really plan and prepare for anything. You kind of just have to be ready to deal with whatever's thrown at you kind of on like a moment's notice. So yeah,
Um,
spontaneity.
how does that uncertainty affect your preparations? I think just before you answer it, I'll say your sponsor, Rip Curl, is somebody who is absolutely seized on a time when a lot of other people are just zipping up their purse strings, holding onto their money, and they're afraid to make any move. Rip Curl's just gaining market share and they're securing events for 3 years and stuff like that. So that's an example of somebody who I feel like probably had that strategy in place and has done it probably through other recessions because they've been around so long. But
Yeah.
does the uncertainty of the year affect your preparations?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely affects it. And I think for me, like I'm used to the way my mind works is like, I kind of like to know what's going to happen and then prepare for it. And so through all last year, even still, like we didn't really know when the tour was going to happen. We thought it might start a few times, and then obviously it didn't. So I think at least I got some practice on that, and that's been something I've been working on. It's like became almost like the number one most important thing for me is to like make sure I have that more uh, spontaneous outlook on the year and just kind of be ready and not let the changes and the losing this event, losing that event, going to this event, those things affect you. It's like so that's something I'm really trying to work on and focus on this year actually. And it's good test too. And for your point on rip curl, I mean, yeah, I think it's super interesting. I mean, I don't like, I can't believe how many people are surfing around the world right now. Like, I mean, I've been in Hawaii and California, but like, holy shit, there's more surfers than I've ever seen. Like, people surfing places that I used to surf by myself. There's like 100 people out now. And so I mean, it's super cool. I mean, it's sometimes it's a little hard to get a wave, but
Yeah.
I feel like as a whole, like, people found surfing, like, we've known surfing's rad. We do it because we love it, but all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, surfing's really cool. It's something outside, connects me with nature, all these things that, like, I love about it. I think people were able to grasp during COVID. And obviously people aren't going to have as much time on their hands for years to come to surf as much as they have been. But I
Yeah.
still think, say there was 100 new surfers, I'm sure 50 of them are still going to surf all the time now. So it does seem like, maybe the decline of the surf industry that we've been in for the last, I don't know, 8 years, maybe we've found a bottom and kind of a bounce back, and maybe COVID somehow helped that. I know it's like been really spotty for business, but I know Rip Curl, they've done well. And I think they were able to kind of adapt to this new environment pretty easily. And I think if you're making hard goods, it's like, I was talking to the futures guys the other day because we're launching this fin with them, and they were like, we finally don't owe our factories money, and we just can't get enough product. Well, by the time we get product, it's all sold already, like, I've had the same thing with our towel company. It's like, the hardest thing is to get the product into the country. It's already sold, it's just, you got to get it here. So it's cool. And I know Rip Curl was in that spot. Like, they said they first were just nervous and they pulled back on all their wetsuit projections, and then they sold everything and they couldn't get more. So yeah, it's been interesting, and it's great that they're supporting the tour. I feel like it's been a little bit of a rocky road for the tour, and that they're willing to still stand behind it is cool. And I think we need that. There's such a big push for the tour to become more commercial and more mainstream, but I think we really need to remember, the DNA of the tour and keep core surfing at the heart of it. And I think Rip Curl really appreciates that. And as a brand, that's a big part of their ethos. So I think that they feel pretty connected there, and want to stand behind that.
And it's great to see that they've maintained that ethos after selling to Kathmandu as well. I just figured everything would change at that point, and it really hasn't. They've doubled down.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know much about Kathmandu. I went through like the whole Hurley Nike transition, and we all saw how that ended up. It took a while. For a while, it was fine, and then they got their teeth sunk further in and wanted things more their way, and it didn't work out. So hopefully, I don't know. I'm not. I just think, it's like you find a great company. It's like, why would you want to come in and turn the thing on its head, and start doing things completely different? And hopefully, I think Kathmandu seems to really appreciate that about Rip Curl. So yeah, and they've always stayed true to, they're a surf company, and they want to make the best surf goods. And, I don't think they care about necessarily being the coolest, or they don't want to make athleisure because they feel like they're going to compete with, you know, Lululemon. It's like, no, let's make good wetsuits. Let's make good trunks, sponsor surfers that love to surf, and, tell that story of the search. And they stick to those guns. And I think they're easily able to kind of scale up and scale down because of that, in a better business environment, or in slower times like we've seen in the last few years.
Good. Yeah. Well, they're in a great position going into whatever we're going into.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so we're talking about preparation for kind of the uncertainty, just very kind of matter of factly and directly. Snapper and bells are gone. And so does that and the replacement events help or hinder your personal ambitions? Would you do better
Uh,
if Snapper and bells were on, or will you do better in this new scenario?
it's so funny because, like when I first got on tour, you go into the year and you're like, oh, cool, like J-Bay, Chopu, Bells, you have these lists of events that you think you're going to do well at. And then you have ones that you're like, oh, those might be harder for me. And I guess, probably subconsciously still do that on some level. But what I quickly learned is, like, it doesn't matter where you go out for a heat. It's like, there's so many other factors and so many things that are out of your control that I could do better at Brazil, next year than I would at bells, which, on paper, everyone would tell me I do better at bells. And in my head, yeah, maybe I do better at bells. But, I think just the biggest thing to remember, and the biggest thing I've learned, it's like, you just have to paddle out for each heat, treat them all the same, no matter where you are and what the conditions are like. And I truly believe that's the best place to compete from, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's like, I get unlucky in a heat at pipe and I get 33rd, but it's like, you might get lucky in 3 heats have 3 heats kind of go my way, and at beach break that I wouldn't have thought I'd do as well. And all of a sudden you're in the quarters. So, I think that's kind of my outlook. It's like, I feel confident in just trying to go out and do my thing at each spot, at each venue. I mean, obviously there's waves. I like to surf. I love to
Yeah.
surf snapper. I love to surf bells, but yeah, I'm really trying to not measure events against each other, treat them all the same and try to compete well at all of them.
Have you ever been to Rot Nest?
No, no, it looks insane though.
Does it? I haven't
I,
seen
I
much.
honestly haven't seen, like, I YouTube trolled some footage of like
Yeah.
one, I think Strickland's, which I guess is the
Yeah.
wave that might be the main site. And it looks like a super fun shreddable left, which would be killer, because for the years past, we haven't had many opportunities to surf like a rippable left on tour. So that'd be really fun. And then, yeah, I looked at the place we were staying the other night, or one of them, and looked so pretty. So I'd
Cool.
imagine if it looks anything like WA, an island version of that would be pretty rad.
Yeah, for sure. How did you connect with Glenn Micro Hall, and why did you choose to work with him? I presume you're still working with him, right?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a good question. Well, yeah, I mean, I worked with Gurr for a super long time, kind of growing like from my mid-teens, I guess, kind of like to my early 20s to like my first year on tour, and had like just so much fun working with Gurr, and learned a ton. And what I love Gurr's intricacy for breaking down surfing, and like his passion and skill level for that, and like what he's doing with Wave Key now is just, I don't think that there, and no one's doing it on that level of detail. And I think it's super cool. And then I guess once I got on tour, uh, Gerb had moved down to Oz, and like we were still kind of working a bit, but it was a little bit harder to like, I didn't I wasn't learning like as much about competing at that point. I was still so much like in this technical mindset of surfing. And then, um, it's hard to, I think, balance that, like that over analyzing things, which I do, and then trying to go out and just like wipe the slate clean and go surf a heat. So yeah, I was kind of like a little bit in limbo there. And then I'd known Glenn, but we were actually out surfing Cloudbreak one day, like, and I lost the heat like against Wiggly, and I'd stuck around for the next week. The waves were so good, and we were out one afternoon. There was like me and him and Wilco and Ace. The waves were firing, and I just kind of started picking his brain a little bit, and just I always thought he seemed like a super nice guy, super cool, and um, he'd obviously helped Wilco a lot with his competitive surfing. And
Yeah.
I guess at that time I was just kind of had a desire to try to be a better competitor, not just a better surfer. And as weird as it sounds, those are two different things on some level.
Totally. Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, we just kind of hit it off. And I think my second or third year on tour, I started working with him, and I really had, it was nice for me because I felt like a sense of camaraderie cruising with like him and Wilco and Owen and Ace, and having some good buddies on tour. So that was really nice. Just some people to hang with and bounce things off. And yeah, I've learned a lot, and it's been super fun.
What has he provided for you as a coach?
Um, I think like the biggest, it, it's funny, he just is like really level headed, and just keeps everything super simple. And he just kind of like reassures me a lot, and like some of the shit that goes through your head, he's like, no, just cut that stuff out, focus on these things. And I think like Micro's biggest thing is actually pretty cool. He surfed a heat at Avoca the other day. He hasn't surfed a contest, I think, since that he or the heat he broke his back.
Oh yeah.
The next year he did on tour, whatever fell off that year at Pipe. I don't think he's surfed a heat since. And he just has a really cool outlook on life. And but he just has that like go for it attitude. I think like a lot of when you surf, it's like we care what it looks like. Yeah. And there's kind of like this stigma around competing. I think it's like, oh, it's not cool to, give it 110%. And like, if it doesn't look cool, then, I don't want to do it. Oh, if I dug rail on that turn, like kind of give up, so he kind of has this really just like, put it all out there on the table and just like, let it rip and don't think about what other people think about what you're doing. And I think that's super cool. And I think he's encouraged a lot of people, like younger kids around there, to have the same. And I think that's something I've learned a lot from. Not that I never really cared about what other people thought, but I was also super into like surfing and style, and sometimes I felt like that kind of hindered the way I'd approach a heat, because I like wanted it to look and feel in a certain way. And at the end of the day, sometimes in a heat, you kind of just have to put that stuff aside and like get the job done. And I think he's really kind of just helped me strip it down and keep it simple, and like learn some good ways to just get through heats.
Cool. Um, you were a lifelong Channel Islands team rider, and you transitioned to JS Industries in probably the mid 2020, about a year ago, I'd say. What was behind that decision?
Yeah, that was a tough decision. And yeah, it's just, I'd been with CI for so long, and kind of through a lot of different phases of the company. And obviously it had insane surfboards, and they got me to where I was in the last few years. So yeah, nothing but good things to say about CI. I felt like I just got to a point where it was, I think when you do something for a long time, it's like, yeah, there's that thing of like kind of wanting a new feeling, a little bit, and I guess getting on the JSs, definitely felt new and kind of spicy. And after being on tour for a few years, and you're just, I think really just trying to look for anything to level up. It's like you get on anything with people that are really good, and when you're good at something too, and you're 5%, 2%, 3%, 10%. If you can find a 10% gain somewhere, that's like huge. And so I think just trying to find all those little things. And the board thing was, it's tough with CI. I love those guys, and like, I have my good friends shaping my board and stuff, and had a great relationship, put out models with them that did really well. And I think there was just like, they were kind of going through a transition period. Now, they've bought the business back, and I'm stoked for those guys. They all seem super happy. But I think I really was looking for like just something new and fresh, and JS kind of had that. And he's shaped for so many guys on tour for so long, and world champs and stuff. And I felt like where I was, just like having that wealth of knowledge and experience, and for all the spots on tour, and having a lot of guys surfing in those events, I just felt like it was kind of beneficial at this time in my career. But yeah, it was definitely hard to leave the hometown board company. But yeah, I love JS's boards, and the freaking work super good. And I've looked up to a lot of guys that have surfed on his boards. So yeah, I'm really stoked.
How much of a learning curve is there involved with getting used to a new relationship, new shaper, new quiver, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's been super, so different than working with CI, because I live 5 minutes from Channel Islands my whole life, and I could go down there every day, and I could drop boards off. I could bring boards in and talk about surfboards and watch them get sanded if I want to, watch them get shaped. And now it's like, I talk to JS over the phone or email and send him board feedback, and he sends me a quiver of boards and I don't even see him. So it's super different. And I think COVID's kind of made that harder too. It was funny. I had to make a decision last year, assuming the tour was starting. And so I made the decision I did, and then COVID happened, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, I can't travel anywhere. I couldn't even get boards. They couldn't really ship boards. So for a while I was just riding stock boards from Oceanside that felt sick. I mean, they're made in Oz, but it was just what I had access to. And what I really wanted to fly down to Oz and just like spend a couple of weeks on the Gold Coast working on boards and surfing with him and Joel. And so yeah, I'm yet to do that a year into it, but I know I'll get there, I think, on this trip at the end of the leg. So yeah, but as far as like a learning curve, I honestly don't even really know. It's like I got boards and they work good, and I had like a lot of boards that work good. So I was like, okay, this is sick. And it wasn't like I had to. I wouldn't have made the decision if I had to like sift through a bunch of boards to find a good board. It was like I was just kind of had a plug and play quiver of boards that I really liked. And, just it's, he's got it really down to like a science. It seems like with the board, if I send him the number of a board I like, it's like, okay, cool, here's 2 more of those. And, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting to actually like work with him in person and work on boards, yeah,
You talked
experience
about
that more.
you talked about trying to level up, 3% or 5% or whatever. Is there any specific benefit that you've recognized from making that switch to the JS Quiver?
I'd say like the responsiveness of the boards, like they just feel so fine tuned. And like when there's a little bit of wave, it's like they're just so spicy and like so like the boards feel so connected to your feet and to me, and like gives me that freedom on the wave, which I really like. That's kind of probably what I wanted more than anything. It's like, when you get a board that works, that feels kind of like an extension of you, then all of a sudden you get to go back to like the creative part of surfing. It's like, oh, I want to go there on the wave, and your board goes there, and so I felt like once I was on the boards, it was like, I think I was finding new places on the wave and kind of having a new approach to turns that, even though it's a turn that I have done for a while, it's like it kind of had a different line. And then I was able to really like build on that and just focus on like my surfing. And I felt like all of a sudden, doing more like blowtails and more kind of radical surfing was easier. And I don't do many airs still, but just like I felt like I had a fresh approach to the wave and was like unlocking new spots I could turn and do blowtails and stuff a lot easier. So that was super nice.
Cool. Um, Given that you had 2020 off to kind of work on some stuff and not have to focus on competition, do you feel like you are a better surfer or even a stronger competitor after having that season off? Or do you feel like the time off actually has inhibited your development towards, your potential world title?
No, I'd say I'm definitely a better surfer. Like I was even just watching footage from like a year ago, and I was like, "Wow,
Hmm.
that's crazy." I feel like I'm surfing a lot better, so that's great. As far as a competitor goes, I wouldn't say that I'm better as a competitor, because I feel like I was in that competitive rhythm before, and like in that headspace of like going to events and stuff. And I think that that's something that, I kind of had like taught myself to do. And so even though I'm still trying, it's like, there's nothing quite like pulling that jersey on and paddling out for a heat. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward, like the kind of 10 days when I get out of here will be just like working with Micro and surfing with Ace and running practice heats and just like really trying to get that feeling going again, and I've been doing that, but like I think that being here and having those people to do it with will be nice. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm worse, but I definitely don't think I'm a much better competitor than I was the last time I put a jersey on.
Yeah, it's interesting. That all makes perfect sense. But I also feel like sometimes people just benefit from taking a break from stuff?
Yeah.
So
No, I would say that. I mean, for sure, like I have a rejuvenated sense of excitement about competing that I probably didn't have when the last
that's
season
good.
ended either. Um, and just like a break from traveling. I mean, I'd been traveling like crazy for 10 years solid, like
Yeah.
probably since I was 15 or 16, starting to, I mean, doing free surfing trips, but then doing QSs and all that. So to have that time at home, and like I feel like mentally I'm in a better place, and like in life in a good place. So I think that translates into competition. So maybe in those ways I am a better competitor. And I just
We'll
don't know
see.
it yet.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Um, why do you think American surfers have had such a hard time winning a world title since the days of Kelly and Lisa? I mean, if we classify Hawaii as its own nation state and not part of America, it's been since 2011, so 10 years on the men's side, and it's been since 1997 on the women's side.
Yeah,
So,
that's
what are your
crazy.
thoughts on America's failures towards the world title?
Um, poof. It's a good question. I mean, Kelly had such a stranglehold on it for so long, and I mean, there's no doubt he's one of the greatest surfers of all time. I know it's cliche, but the guy's insane. I mean, the fact that he's still even putting a jersey on it, however old he is, blows my mind. I'm like, why are you still doing this?
I know.
But anyways, yeah, hats off to him. And Yeah, I always think that there's not really a lack of skill or talent, I don't think, from America. We have good surfers, and I think it comes down to, Australia like really embraces surfing. I think like when I was growing up, we didn't know what we were doing. Like, I mean, granted, my parents weren't surfers and they weren't like raising me to be a pro surfer. So I was just going surfing and like, this is freaking epic and so fun. And then it wasn't until like further down the road that I even like realized, oh shit, like people, I don't know, train or do work with people and are trying to get better. It's like we didn't know what we were doing. We were just watching videos of guys surfing, and like my friend's dad Toma, would like take us surfing all the time, and he'd kind of break stuff down for us. But I think that for a long time it seemed like Australia was like a little bit ahead of things on like really having a program to like support the youth to getting there. And I think as from American surfing, it's like funny because we have the industry. We've always had the industry and have probably gotten paid the most from a young age of anywhere of other surfers in the whole world. But in a way, I almost feel like that inhibits it a little bit because like I know I even went through that. It was like when I was 18 and like trying to do the QS, it was like, whoa, this is so hard. And like trying to feel like you had that backing and like that support network around, competitive surfing. I don't know, it was like kind of a new whole learning curve. And whereas I'd been going on trips for the mags and like having support from my sponsors to do that sort of stuff from like, 14, 15. And so it's almost like there was this whole other career path that you could go down there. And I almost felt like for me, that like took away from my competitive drive a little bit because,
Totally.
I kind of looked at what Dane was doing and I was like, shit, if I can just be like a rad free surfer and get paid to go surfing, why would I try so hard in contests? And I think that so from going back, I guess it's like when you kind of get that, I think you start making money from a younger age, you have that support of your sponsors and stuff. It's like, okay, you, some guys are inherently super competitive. Like I look at Kolohe and he's like, he wants to win at all costs. Like, and I think that, I don't know if it's an American thing and that's rad. I'm not, I wish I had that sometimes, it's like, but I think there's a lot of us, it's like you get a little bit spoiled from a young age in that support from the industry that you maybe lose like a little bit of that hunger or something. I don't know. I'm kind of just like hypothesizing here more than anything. But it's like there's two career paths and you almost have a choice. Whereas I think if you're coming from Brazil, or from Australia, it was like ingrained in those guys from a young age to be competitive surfers, or, in Brazilians' case, it's like that's their way out. Like that's how they're putting food on the table. And there's a lot of opportunity where we're from. And, I kind of always had the outlook like, oh, if surfing doesn't work out, I'll go do something else, like I'll
Yeah,
go work for my dad and build houses, or I'll go get another job. And so I think I don't know, I think that almost waters it down a little bit.
I do
And
too.
maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
I totally agree. There's a spoiled aspect to it that doesn't benefit the surfer. And I think you're right. Brazil and Australia are who you can attribute all the world titles to in the last decade or two. And they are different scenarios. Australia has the structure that you talked about, which
Yeah.
breeds champions. And then Brazil has the grit that you're talking about. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the difference between like the system in America will get you on tour. There's great
Yeah.
talent. They'll send you around the world to surf all these different waves, and you'll have enough competitive savvy to make the tour. But the difference between making the tour and winning a world title is grit. I
Yeah.
mean, there's like a level of grittiness that Adriana de Souza has, and that certainly Gabriel Medina has, that you cannot train, you can't teach. It's just inherent. And that's the difference between, I think, first place and second place a lot of the time. And Kelly had it coming from
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah.
John's kind of an anomaly just because he's such a freakish talent, that
Yeah.
he's kind of
Yeah.
defied
I
it.
think that I, I agree. I semi disagree. Like, I think that you can learn grit. I do think, but it's like you got to do it. Like, I did it on the QS. I didn't have it. And I was like, hey, I want to qualify. Like, what's this going to take? And you got to really dig deep and you have to look at all those things that you have to be like, it's always that like fine line and that paradox of like being really self-critical, but like also not being overly self-critical. But like you have to be willing to like peel off all those layers and like find out what you're really made about and like what you want to achieve. And then you have to put that into practice and you have to freaking do it. And like you can give it 150%, you could give it 110%, but like, Adriano gave it 500%, for
Mm-hmm.
a while there. And it worked, and
Yeah.
I think you can't shortcut that, the grit aspect. And I do think it comes down to that for sure.
After Oz, we potentially have Rio, Surf Ranch, Tahiti. What is your strategy to break into that top 5 to get into lowers?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like I don't even right now, I'm not even thinking past like next week
Okay.
as far as surfing and plans and all that stuff goes. But yeah, right now it's just like focus on whatever event the first time I can get in a jersey and surf in that first heat. And I think that's like for me, I've always felt like I compete the best when it's like, you got to be really present. And when I start thinking about results and when I start thinking about rankings, if I start thinking about top 5, it's like, yeah, the goal is to be in the top 5. The goal is, to win the next contest. The goal is to, but if you start like looking too far out, I think it kind of takes you out of that like real present spot. So, I mean, I really just try to take it heat by heat. It's like, wave by wave, moment by moment. So just being prepared for this first contest and being prepared for the one after that and then
Yeah.
the one after that, and the heat after that. So yeah, we really have no idea what the second leg of the tour is going to look like. So yeah, I think just trying to this year more than anything, it's like really testing that ability to just stay super present.
Good. Um, what's your daily routine in quarantine? Considering that you're
Daily
locked
routine.
down, are you able to be physically active? And what's the routine?
Yeah, been actually not too jet lagged, kind of waking up. I like to wake up early inherently, but kind of been getting up early. Yeah, I made a challenge to myself in quarantine to like try to meditate for an hour a day. So I've been pretty
Wow.
much trying to start my day with that. And then, if I do it 30 minutes 2 times a day or 20 minutes 3 times a day, whatever it is, however it shakes out. So that's that. And then I've kind of had this like nagging back injury going on for like a year and a half. Like it's related to like a hip thing I did in Bali one year during the contest. And so I've been super diligent about just like a morning routine every day, like to get my body going. Unfortunately, I think I've hit that age where all the years of fun start to, catch up to me. And I like have to do it because even the times I start feeling good, I'm like, oh, I'll just go surf today. It's like, oh no, gotta warm
Yeah.
up. So yeah, it's been good. Yeah, I mean that's probably like an hour and a half of my morning every day. And here I got tons of time to do it. If I'm at home, it might only be 30 minutes, if I want to go surf. But um that and then what else? And then like yeah, we got some exercise bikes and that's the WSL hooked us up with that and like some weights and stuff. So then I try to do like more of a workout in the afternoon because just to stay physically active. And I've been YouTubing these like hit workouts these chicks do on YouTube.
I saw
Oh
it
my
on
god, they're so
Instagram.
hard. It's freaking like little girl just killed me yesterday. And but no, it's good. It feels good to sweat. And like if I don't get exercise, I can't, it's harder to sleep. So
Yeah.
yeah, just trying to stay active. And then been reading, been doing stuff on the computer. I don't know. I don't mind the downtime. It's like I feel like sometimes I'm always trying to catch up to stuff like emails or getting back to someone or this phone call or that. It's like nice to just have plenty of time to catch up on all that stuff. So I'm just trying to get rid of any backlog of stuff that I've been putting off. Might I've been editing some footage too. That's kind of fun, like getting
Cool.
clips and putting them together. Might try to learn how to build a website. I don't know, whatever, all kinds of little things, cooking.
Is it Young Wise Tales 2.0, the website?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what. It might just be like something for me and just fart around with it. But yeah, Young Wise Tales kind of faded off. We were trying to do the vlog thing for a while, and it's just like I don't know. It felt kind of, it was hard to just keep interesting things every week or whatever. I was like, this is crazy.
It it doesn't matter how interesting of a life you are leading. It has nothing to do with that. It takes a very specific personality type to
Yeah.
want to be on all day and document everything and be
Yeah.
on that hamster wheel of content creation where you're
Yeah.
constantly prepping and then filming and then editing and then publishing and promoting. It just never, it's a very unique personality type, you know?
Totally. And it's hard. It's a lot of work to do it well. And like, it's a little bit exhausting. And at the end of the day, I felt like competing was where my energy should be going.
Good.
So yeah, we stopped doing that, but it was fun. I mean, I still love like putting edits together and doing trips, and I miss that being on tour as much. You know, it's like you don't find the time to do those sorts of things as much. But
Yeah.
I'm stoked
Uh,
to be here.
Real quickly about meditation, what is the practice? What type of meditation are you doing? Are you using an app? And what does your practice look like?
No, I mean, I have that daily calm app on my
Yep.
phone, or that is it calm?
Just
Yeah.
calm. Yeah.
And there's that daily calm. Like I'll do that just to do it. I like sometimes, the little tidbits they sprinkle in there. But for me, no, I just learned like I don't know a whole lot about meditation. Like I've never really like focused in on like trying to learn one type of meditation. But I guess it'd probably just be called like mindfulness meditation, where I just
Yep.
focus on my breath and just try to let my thoughts go and kind of always try to come back to my breathing. Is that called mindfulness meditation?
Yeah. It sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just taking that time every day. I don't know. People ask me like if it makes a difference. Like I would say I started doing I started practicing meditation when I was like the year before I got on tour, I think somewhere in there, like before I qualified. And I thought it was like one of the most life-changing things
Hmm.
you could do, which sounds so weird when you tell people that, like that, just doing that is going to change my life. And yeah, like I think 100%, like it's such a good thing to do. It's totally bizarre that it has such a positive benefit to day-to-day life, that I don't know. I'm such a believer in it now.
It certainly seems to be experiencing a surge in popularity in recent years, and obviously it's easier to do with apps now, which I didn't have access to when I was growing up. It was like a far out Eastern thing that other people
Yeah.
did. But I think the reason why it's popular is it's like the backlash against social media. Like social
Yeah.
media keeps us in this frenzied, anxious state at all times, and so that's the kind of quickest way to wipe the slate clean and kind of experience calm, you know?
Yes, for sure. I mean, it's like we have access to this thing all day long, and we're always getting hit with information that
Yeah.
your mind can just jump on the hamster wheel so quickly. And I just think meditation is such a good way to, like you said, snap out of that. And then it just creates a level of awareness throughout your whole life that then, I think if you're open to it, you can really start to make some progress on things you want to work on in a way that you can't otherwise. It's a lot harder to accomplish if you don't have that awareness already.
Which is why I think 2020 could have been a great opportunity for you or just athletes in general because when else are you going to get a year to take off
Oh
from
yeah,
the thing that you've been focused on for a decade, you know?
totally. Yeah, never. And just coming back with that kind of fresh start is super nice. I mean, I thought, to me 2020 was a total gift. I was like about to start the season hurt, like some mornings could freaking barely get my pants on because my back hurt so bad.
Yep.
And in limbo with surfboards and kind of still feeling tired from the year before. And now I'm going to start this season like feeling confident in my equipment, in a way better mental state and physical state. So yeah, huge. I'm very grateful for 2020, even though it's been a tough and bizarre year in its own ways for so many people. It's like sucks. And I almost feel, you almost feel weird saying that you're appreciative of this year, because it could easily be in a totally different situation. But yeah, for selfishly, for I think my sake, and I'm sure other athletes' sake, it was kind of nice to have a break and like a little bit of a fresh start.
Well, this 2 weeks or the remaining 10 days that you have in the hotel could be the same opportunity too. So take
Yeah.
advantage of it, enjoy it, let it work for you. And everybody will be watching in Newey. Excited to see.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
welcome.
looking forward to it. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast, and yeah, keep in touch.
I will. I'm going to publish this tomorrow, so I'll send it over when we do.
Okay, cool.
Sweet.
Sounds
Thanks, Connor.
good. Yeah, no worries. Did we need to do like an intro thing?
I'll do it in post. Like I'll give
Oh,
you a
okay,
proper
cool.
introduction. So
Okay, sweet.
cool.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, man.
Gladly. Good to
For
connect.
sure.